This is my screencast by Abby Callard for EDC 150. So first, my introduction. My name's Abby, obviously. I'm a senior at Alma College as an educational studies with an emphasis in early childhood and a minor in psychology. I plan to go on to a master's program for clinical social work, hopefully at U of M. This is my fourth placement, and I am currently in Mrs. Bingham's resource room, which caters to 3rd and 4th grade at Ithaca North Elementary. At this school, I have administered the Brigance reading test for one of my students, Elle, and implemented a short lesson to assist in her reading comprehension. First, criterion reference tests are designed to measure student performance against a fixed set of determined criteria or learning standards. Formative assessments are assessments that are given out throughout the learning process. They're used to determine how students are progressing through a certain level. They're not as high stakes as summative assessment. Summative assessments are used to evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standards or benchmarks. They're usually high stakes and have a point value, for example, exams, graded papers, standardized tests, things of that sort. Triangulation is the process of a teacher using 3 different points of data when making educational decisions. A single form of data is subject to environmental and motivational influence, which can affect the accuracy of the tests. So it's better to use multiple sources for accuracy and a better idea of how your students actually learn. So the Brigance reading comprehension is the test that I gave out in my classroom, and so the procedure for that is that I obviously performed it with my student Elle, and so the way the test is administered is you have the student read the column A starting at the 1st grade level. Then you have the student answer the questions that goes along with this. I would continue that process until the student was getting less than 80%, which is more than 1 wrong on the questions correct. Whenever the student stopped would be the grade level that they're at. This is done in September, January, and May, but obviously I was only able to really do it in January and March. So the results of the Brigance reading comprehension test for my student, when administering the test, she made it to a 2nd grade reading level, which to me makes sense as she's in the end of her 3rd grade year. She had a few issues with a question in the lower 1st grade level, but was able to surpass that, doing well on the upper 1st and then stopping at 2nd. She was still at the same level when I tested her afterwards, which is not entirely surprising as it had only been a couple weeks. On the next slide is the graph used to display the information about the Brigance test as it would typically be administered. Obviously, I couldn't fill in most of this information since I've only been here for a few months, but she was on the S144 form for 2nd grade at 60% both times I tested for her. And so obviously her reading goal would be by the last time I checked was March. So March 19th, 2019, Elle will read at the 3rd grade level as measured by the Brigance reading test. So planning and results. Knowing the level that your students are at is extraordinarily helpful when you're planning what to have them do in the classroom. If your student is at a 2nd grade level, you can plan accordingly to have them do work that will be possible for them to accomplish. And it'll help them move up into their 3rd grade level. You can also use this to tell whether or not what you're planning for your students is working. So if a student is at the exact same level by January or May when you re-administer, there's obviously an issue and something must be changed to further assist the student. So for the sample lesson plan that I did try out with my student, I would have had them pick out a book that they hadn't read in the classroom library yet. We looked at If You Give a Pig a Pancake. I would first have the students sort of study the title and the cover to kind of make guesses about what the story may be about. Then I would have them read it aloud to me with the option to reread if needed. I found a worksheet then on Pinterest after doing research about how to help reading comprehension. And this was a read and recall worksheet, which would ask what the story was mostly about. It would then ask for 2 things that the student could remember from the story. And then there was a section that was labeled beginning, middle, and end, where the student would either need to draw a picture or write out these parts. This would be a good way to help with comprehension, as the student obviously needs to be able to recall what had just occurred within the story and put it into a specific order. And this is the lesson. In conclusion, this has been a really good experience to be able to see the level that my student was at when I tested her both times. It was interesting to see how that translated into a lesson plan and how it would help her better move forward to different grades. I also liked getting the one-on-one time with that student as I gave the test. It helped me have a better connection with her. She was very excited to help when I told her that she was going to help me with my college class. And then for the research portion, this article talked a lot about using strategies and accommodations when teaching children with learning disabilities. It talks a lot about reading material aloud, which is obviously what I implemented with my student, highlighting important information, copying class notes, whatnot. It takes time and effort to be able to help students, obviously, and making sure that the students have and can practice the basic skills for reading before moving on to new information is important. This is very similar to what's kind of been discussed within our classrooms in the readings for this class, especially making sure that your student has baseline set of skills to be able to achieve higher levels. Obviously, if your child can't read or doesn't know their letters, they're not going to be able to read full sentences or words. So if a student is having trouble with sounding written out words, you cannot expect them to jump, obviously, into higher or varied reading material. So having different strategies and accommodations is what an individualized lesson plan is all about. So this very much connects and makes sense about what we've learned while in this class. And that would be it.